Before the break, I told you about a series of cases in Texas in which women who needed emergency abortion procedures were denied that medical care because of the state's stringent abortion bans. Each of those women very nearly died, and each was left with permanent damage to their reproductive systems. Joining me now is Amanda Zarowski. In 2022, she nearly lost her life after she was denied an abortion after suffering complications during pregnancy. She's now the first plaintiff named in a lawsuit against the state of Texas that grew to include 20 women and 2 doctors. Along with me is Nancy Northup, the president and CEO of the Center for Reproductive Rights. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being with us. Amanda, we had such a good conversation the other day that I wanted to bring a little of that to TV. It'll appear on a podcast about Project 2025 and some of the plans for abortion in there. But I thought it important to remind people that these abortion restrictions and the exceptions that they say they make are abstractions, and you are the part that is not an abstraction. You are the real life example of why exceptions don't work. When people say exceptions don't work, to people who don't have to face an abortion, doesn't mean anything. You're the fact. You had to get near death. It's not good for anybody to get near death for any reason. You had to get near death in order to get your abortion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you, first of all, so much for having us. It's good to see both of you. But yeah, when people say that exceptions work, I am fortunately still living proof that they don't work. And I'm one of hundreds, if not thousands, of women that are living proof that exceptions do not work. It is as clear as day.
Nancy, part of the problem here is that once you get removed from Amanda and her doctor and the medical team, and the decision has to be made anywhere higher than that, it puts friction in that process, and friction becomes take the easy way out, and the easy way out is we can't do this abortion. We can't do that. And this is repeating itself, as Amanda says, dozens and hundreds of times across the country.
Yes, I mean, what happened to Amanda ending up in the ICU, risking her life, what happened to the women in the complaints we filed this week with the federal government who had the ectopic pregnancies. This should scare anyone who is pregnant in a state where abortion is a crime, because doctors, as you point out, have been put in the untenable position of having to worry about facing 99 years of prison in Texas and giving the standard of care to the patient in front of them. It is not a tenable situation. And so what is happening is that women are being turned away from emergency rooms when they are in pregnancy complications that are risking their lives.
Amanda, I would have assumed that once this worked its way through the system, the court would have said, okay, this is a bit of a cumbersome law, but you're definitely the exception. You should have definitely been given the abortion that you needed to save your life. That's not the case.
No, it's not the case. In the decision in my lawsuit, they actually mentioned that what happened to me shouldn't have been made to have happened, but they failed to provide any sort of clarification, and they failed to give any sort of grace to most of the plaintiffs listed on my suit. As a matter of fact, in their decision, the Texas Supreme Court erased most of our names from the written verdict and effectively tried to erase us in our voices. Unfortunately, they are not going to be able to do that, and we are going to keep speaking up as long as this keeps happening. And I'm so proud of the brave women in Texas who are speaking up with the center today.
Nancy, ostensibly, we're talking about Project 2025 here. I've got mine is in 2 copies because that's how many pages it is that it needs to be bound in 2 documents. Mentions abortion about 200 times. Doesn't call for a national ban, which feels like an out. Feels like people say, well, they're not asking for a national abortion ban. But again, the reason to have Amanda in this conversation and to have you in this conversation is to demonstrate that, in fact, you don't need a national abortion ban to not only achieve your goals of not letting women have an abortion, but to make things much more difficult and dangerous for women in places where they think their abortion rights are protected right now.
Right. I mean, it is really frightening, the position that states like Texas have taken, where they won't even clarify that you can get access to abortion care in a medical emergency. In fact, they're fighting. They sued the federal government because they don't want to say that the important federal statute that requires stabilizing care in emergency rooms also covers women who've had abortion care. So, yeah, I mean, the kind of things that will be done at the federal level, as you say, Project 2025 lays them out, is really, really frightening. I mean, we're going to see more and more what we've already seen, attempts by these states to stop women from leaving their states to go to states where abortion is legal, going after doctors in states where abortion is legal who are providing care via telemedicine to women in states where abortion is banned. I mean, it is really, really important that we reestablish, Congress can do this, a federal right to abortion. And it's really important that the states that have abortion rights on the ballot in November are able to get those passed and their constitutions to protect in those states where they can. Unfortunately, Texas is not one of those states.
At the moment, Amanda, there are 8 states, I think, that have it on the ballot. It'll probably end up being 11 states. There are 22 states that have abortion bans. These 8 states will be interesting because up till now, all of those statewide elections about abortion have not only led to higher turnout, but it's led to, no matter who brings the referendum, it always ends up protecting abortion rights. So this is a very motivating thing for voters on November 5th. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are both strongly identified with the protection of reproductive rights. And this is where you are now getting involved as well. In addition to your court case, you're out there telling people you can make a choice about this.
That's right. I'm very honored to be a part of the Harris-Walz campaign, and I do want to add that it's fantastic that there are these ballot measures in 8 states this November. I think that's great. But I also want to remind people that if Trump makes his way back to the White House, if Trump and Vance have an administration, we know, because they have told us, not necessarily through Project 2025, but in their own words, that they would support a national abortion ban and that they would not support legislation that would protect services for IVF. And that's very, very scary. And if that happens, no state will be safe, whether they have a ballot measure or abortion protection or not. And so I just want to remind people, it is really important to vote for all pro-choice candidates up and down the ballot.
And I remind people, it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or you can or can't get pregnant. These are rights. And right now on the screen, I have more rights than the two of you do in 22 states and increasing in this country. That's not democracy. Thank you to both of you. Amanda Zurawski is the lead plaintiff in the Texas abortion ban lawsuit. Nancy Northup is the president and CEO at the Center for Reproductive Rights.